Welcome to Powered by Play, put on by Go Baby Go and the Assistive Technology Lab at Community Vision. Today we have Kim Elliott and Carrie Luce presenting.
The Assistive Technology Lab, Community Vision's Assistive Technology Lab, is a physical space and a program. We're at the corner of Southeast Division and 20th in a universally designed building. We feel very fortunate to be in this fairly new building that's very accessible. We're on the main floor. In non-COVID times, we usually have an open lab times where anyone can just drop in on Thursday afternoons. That's on hold right now, but we are around for email or call. We're an education resource center around all things assistive technology. So we'll make sure everyone has our contact info at the end of this as well. But I am a speech language pathologist by training. Carrie's an occupational therapist, and we're both certified assistive technology professionals. Like I said, though, we're believers in the hive mind, so we all are hoping that we'll learn things from each other today. So we want to talk about play. And if you all want to just to get a feel for who is here, if you want to just type in the chat box, and you can let me know, Carrie, whether you're a parent or family member, a teacher, OTPT, SLP, aide, or anything that I haven't thought of. If you just type that in the chat now, it'd just be nice to know who all is here.
Well, we definitely have lots of OTs and some PTs, EI teachers, parents, more teachers, more parents.
Great.
A really nice mix.
Nice.
Lots of early intervention folks.
Fabulous, fabulous. Well, so we want to talk about play because, as some of you may know, the job of children is play. That's their occupation. There's all sorts of types of play. It could be dress up. It could just be playing tag in the park with your superhero costume on. All sorts of different play. If that's me, I was the dress up queen. I would put on anything when I was a kid. I loved to just wear whatever it was. So all kids play. And can anyone just talk about why kids play? What's so great about play?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is I think kids play because they're able to. I think as adults, we get to the point where we are so focused on other things that we don't allow ourselves to play.
Yeah, you're exactly right. In fact, sometimes we have to schedule quote play times, right? Like, I am going to set this aside. Yes, we do get too busy. And what does play do for kids?
And Kim, real quick, we've got lots of great comments in the chat. So kids kids play because it's fun. They explore their environment. It lets them explore their interests. Somebody said flow, which is really cool. It's how kids learn, how they explore the world. Kaylee said it's fun, imagination, spontaneous, social, engaging, freedom and flexibility to be themselves. And Sarah said social interactions.
Awesome. Yes, all of those things. And really, through all of those characteristics of play, children really do learn and grow significantly through play. It's a way to experiment with what the world is all about and how things work and how people work and what you can do to change things. So we were going to ask for what does it mean to be playful? Some of you had already said some really amazing things, right? So we got some different words: engaged, self-directed, meaning it's really hard to get kids to play with something they're absolutely not interested in, right? And then you've said this, the joy, persistence is another thing. If you're having fun and maybe something's even a little bit hard to do, you're probably going to have the energy to keep doing it because it's so much fun. Some other words, right? Sometimes being mischievous is a fun thing to do with play. Of course, pretend. And then using some objects in different ways. You know, the old banana telephone kind of thing, just doing different things with familiar objects. And negotiation can be a part of that. Like, well, if you let me do this, then you can do that, and then maybe we can switch, right? So some great social skills through play. Again, somebody had said social, it's interactive, initiation, motivated and excited, counting around too, okay. And then sharing, and sometimes sharing doesn't even necessarily mean sharing objects or items, but even just sharing enjoyment with another person. All of those things are related to being playful. And so we're going to talk specifically around some toy adaptations. We specifically start to this workshop talking about play first, because the point of toys is play, and the point of adapting toys is to play with the toy. So sometimes we therapists get, you know, we really want the child to learn the switch. And so we might be tempted to say, you know, oh, hit the switch. But the switch is not what the activity is. It's playing with the toy. So for this little gal, she loves this little light. I forget the name of the light. But she loved it, and you can see that switch is placed, so it's really easy access for her. But it's really about her enjoying turning this light on and off, and the switch is just her means of access. And so we want to make that access really easy. It's not work, and it's really focusing on the activity itself. And I like to liken it to myself, and I use a computer, right? So I have my computer screen and I have my mouse, and I don't focus on my mouse, right? I don't say, oh, I can move my mouse to the left, I can move my mouse to the right. What my mouse does for me is it moves my cursor around so I can focus on my computer. I can navigate to where I want to go and click on things that I want to click on. It's my access to what I'm paying attention to, which is my computer screen. And so a switch is kind of like that. It's just the portal into using the toy for kids with physical disabilities. Any questions about that so far? Comments? And just Carrie, jump in because I can't see the chat. So
yes, I'm monitoring the chat.
Thanks. So we talk about being a smart switch partner, and this is specifically important when a child is learning switches. So if they're brand new to switches, or they're brand new to it, like it's a new type of switch, or maybe it's a switch on a different part of their body than they'd ever used before, or a different sort of, maybe they've had one switch and now you're going to have two. We want to be really smart partners to really enable them to learn that. So at the beginning, we want to find a really easy place. And often Carrie and I have found that we're not ready to mount right away. We're just still finding what spot works. And so you can just hold it and kind of, the child can learn that switch and what it does without really having to focus on the switch itself. They can just focus on the activity. So this is an example of a friend of ours, Will, who we were doing a computer game that he was new to, but really loved. And we were just trying to find a good switch placement for him to make it as easy as possible. You can see he's not looking at the switches at all. He's looking at the computer. And so we were just holding those switches and being really smart partners. If he, at the beginning, the hand was fairly new, his right hand. And so we brought it in pretty close until he could get used to what that movement was to get the switch. And sometimes at the beginning, it might even be a little accidental. And that's okay, because it just kind of gives you a little feedback. Oh, this happened. You obviously don't want to keep it in a spot that's going to be consistently accidental. But at the beginning, really to get the ball rolling, it's okay to start there to really just find that good spot. And to support the learning too, some of you may have seen you might have to activate the switch for them. If, let's say they're starting to learn the movement and they go to move and they just kind of miss it. we would activate for them because they're still learning, and it's really the intention and the initiation was there. And so we want to honor that and give them some good feedback. This is not the case for, say, a child who really knows their switches. And if they miss, no problem. They can kind of problem solve that and figure out how to get the switch the next time around. We're talking about in these earlier stages of learning, or if it's in a new spot. Also, if the switch itself is a bit too stiff, because sometimes there's those switches, then we would activate for the child, and then of course do our best to, get a better switch for that child. But let's say you just all you have is some crummy, stiff switch, but you want to work with the child. You can hold it, and when they make the movement, you can click it yourself in the meantime while you're searching around to get a better switch. Also about timing. So some games or activities you're doing, it might be a little more important that there's some kind of timing involved with the switch. Again, when it's new, we will often bring the switch in. So we'll talk about the step-by-step in a second, but as an example, a child that we worked with who liked to tell jokes, but they were pretty new to jokes and they weren't sure about the timing. So if they just kept hitting the switch and they gave all the punchline away before their person could answer, it would make it less successful for them. So when they're first learning it, we might bring it in for message 1 and pull it away and really just help them with the timing as well. So that also, and again, this is all about in the learning phases and being that smart switch partner. So again, in this example of the bubbles that you see up there, we're not going to talk about hitting the switch for the bubbles, but it might be like, wow, look at all those bubbles. We popped them all. Let's do some more of them. It's about the activity or the game itself. Okay. So I'm going to show you a video of a little guy, Kenny, who at this age, he's about 18 months. And you'll see a lot of adults in the room. It was a teaching hospital up at OHSU, and it was a kind of a clinic. And so there's way more adults than there would normally be in the room. But he was really new to switches. He had used his hand a couple of times or on a couple of different toys, but he would have a head drop whenever he would use his hands. So we were trying first time using head switch, and he'd never done more than one switch at all. And so I'll tell you, the very first thing you'll hear is him activating his mother singing. He loved to hear his mom sing, but the only thing she had was herself recorded on her phone, and we didn't have that set up as a switch. So we faked it. So you can do that too, where we held a switch for him. And as soon as he would make the movement, somebody would hit play on the phone. So but to him, it was the same. It was like hitting the switch, activating the song. And so what you'll see is we start there because it was something really familiar to him. He loved to hear his mom sing. And then really quickly, he progressed through quite a few different activities until he got to using 2 different switches with his head.
Mama is singing. Get more right here. Are you singing? That was some good music. Nice. Wow. Yeah. Yes. Fan. There's Fan. Nice. Here, maybe one little more. Oh, there you go. Oh, one more. I'll do one more.
So there's an example of Kenny in a pretty short amount of time, really figured out those two head switches and going from side to side and learning what they did. And you'll see Carrie sometimes did a little tap at the beginning just to remind him that there was something there for activation, but we really just focused on what it was he was doing, whether it was the singing, music, lights, fan, and then Carrie just being a really smart switch partner. You saw even at the beginning, he was getting pooped out. He was there for a while, and he was, sort of hunched over, but when he just sort of moved, we didn't have to rely on 100% accuracy if it had been in a fixed position, say mounted at that point. He could initiate the movement and then make sure that he got the switch. And so obviously this is very early stages, and that's why we were being particularly smart partners so he could learn through that. Any questions about that sort of sequence of events before we go on? Okay.
Kim, hang on one sec. There is a question. And is he able to sit up on his own? So I can go ahead and answer that. So for Kenny, he could prop sit a little bit on the floor, and he's got a Bannock vest on, like a pressure vest to help him feel his trunk more and give him a little bit of stability. But we had him sitting on, here, I'll turn my video off, sitting on a little bench and had a little table in front of him. And one reason we did that is so that he could have more weight bearing through his pelvis and his feet. And that allowed him to have more head control. So sitting on the floor, just prop sitting on the floor, he was very hunched over. So that's why we moved to a little bench. But yeah, if I hadn't been sitting behind him, he would have kind of just fallen right over. So after he got the hang of it, maybe I think in therapy, he did this several more times. Then they started to move towards some kind of seating system that he could sit in, so you wouldn't have to have a therapist right there. And then eventually mounting switches for him. But like Kim said in the beginning, on his first experience with this activity and this technology, we wanted to help him have a very positive experience with these tools, and not try to hit it and then it didn't work, or it ends up in his eye. So that's why the first couple times you just really want to set him up for success. But that's a great question.
Great. And at any time during don't feel that you have to wait for a break. Just raise your hand or jump in and ask any questions at all. So there is a kind of standard switch progression based on a lot of the work by Linda Burkhardt, she's done a lot of teaching around switch progression. And I want to say that even though it's a progression, you really do not have to master one to go to the next. In fact, we find sometimes moving kids from just one switch on off, like a cause effect thing. Sometimes when you get into two, it actually helps piece things together because there's something to compare one switch to another. And there's that little pattern like, oh, this does this and that does that, versus just one at a time with different toys. So don't feel like you have to get some sort of level of mastery before you go to the next level, or even you can jump sometimes a couple ahead and then come back. So this is just, you start with the one switch, but you saw with Kenny, he quickly went to those 2 switches with 2 different functions. And then today, you'll see some examples of related functions. So that might be like, it's 2 different things, but they're sort of related in play, like picking a clothing item to dress a toy. And then we'll also give you some examples of the 2 switches with sort of an errorless target, which might be building up a tower and then having a walking toy go to knock the tower down. And then 2 switch step scan is tends to be more on a device, and that's when you would move one switch through items and then have another switch to select. And that is sort of before you get to that sort of step scan, you really want to have some experience with 2 switches in some of this other play, these play scenarios. So before we get into some of the ideas, I just wanted to cover the switch interfaces. So the Go Baby Go does toy adaptations, right? So you might take a regular toy that's on the shelf and then you actually do an adaptation where you put a switch port in it. And that's that sort of hardwired battery operated toy. So that's one. And then this guy, as an example, Piggy, if I want Piggy to go, I have to hold my switch down. He doesn't have any timing in him. Some toys have natural timing, like there's a dinosaur we have that once you hit it, it walks for a few seconds. You don't have to have a special timer. I think the Beat Bow might be like that. It plays for a little bit and then it stops. If you have a toy that does not have inherent timing and you have a child who can't hold a switch down the whole time, they can just do a hit, then you would look at something that's called a switch latch timer. And that's this item right here. And that just lets you, what you would do is you would plug the switch latch timer into the toy, and then your switch would go into the switch latch timer. And what that means is latch means I hit the switch and it turns it on. I hit the switch again and it turns it off. That's latch mode, on and off. The timer means I can hit the switch and maybe my Piggy goes for 5 or 10 seconds. I can set the amount of time and it can be any number of seconds or minutes. So that's why they call it a switch latch timer, because you can do latch or the timer. And this is just an example of the same thing. It's just a wireless version of it. It's called the wireless slat. That's switch latch timer and Jelly Beamer. Any questions about switch latch timer before I talk about the other 2? Okay, just let me know if there are. And then there's another, so these are both for battery operated toys. There's also a battery interrupter, which is like a little copper disc that goes into the battery and it basically interrupts the flow, and then there's a little switch port. Honestly, we don't use those very much because they're a bit fussy. Sometimes just the way they slip in and out of the batteries, they can kind of work and then not work. So, but just know that that's out there. It's not the optimal adaptation, but it exists. Again, for battery operated. And then there's also something called a power link. And this is for toys or appliances or other equipment that might plug in. So like you could plug a lamp in, you can plug a fan, a blender, anything that plugs in, your interface would be through a power link. And it does, on a power link, you can also set timing. So you can have it go for any number of seconds or minutes, or you can do the latch where one hit is on, another hit on the switch is off. Or you can do what's called direct, which is I actually have to hold the switch on down to have the toy or the device on, and when I let it go, it goes off. So it has all of that inherent in it. And I'm going to actually show you the use of a power link down the road here.
So Kim, someone was asking, where do you get these items? And so a lot of them, we like the ones made by AbleNet, and I can put that in the chat. And if you're in Oregon, actually, if you're anywhere, but there is a local vendor in Oregon called Boundless AT, and I'll put that in the chat as well. And they are just a vendor that sells a variety of assistive technology. They get good pricing, and it's really nice to just have a local vendor. So if you have questions, you can call them. So either AbleNet or Boundless AT. And then if you'd like to borrow one, a lot of times early intervention programs, educational school districts might have one to borrow and try. And then we also have a free loan closet at the Assistive Technology Lab, and we'll talk a bit about that at the end. And so our loan closet has all of these items, and you can borrow them for usually 2 weeks, sometimes up to 3 weeks if you'd like to try them out. So
yeah, sometimes it's nice just to try them before you actually go and buy them. The other is OTAP. I think OTAP has some of these, and that library is, I think you can do a much longer term. Do you know what the time is for OTAP?
I think it's usually 30 days, and it's mailed directly to you. And so I'll put those 3 options, all that information about the vendors and where to loan in the chat. And then Mackenzie did ask, do these require soldering to the toy? And so some toys come switch adapted. And then if you want to switch adapt yourself, some toys, either Go Baby Go can help you with that, or if you're super crafty yourself, and look online. So yes, some toys come with the switch port, and then others you would put the switch port in yourself.
And so the answer is yes, it does. You have to do soldering if you're going to switch adapt it yourself.
Yes, but if you buy like Dino, the dinosaur picture at the top, he came switch adapted, so we didn't have to do anything. He had a switch port in him.
Yeah, they're just a lot more expensive.
Yes.
They're way more than they should be, but that's the way it is. And I don't know if Andrew Ware, is he still adapting toys, you know, through his
he might be, and actually it's a parent who runs Adaption Contraption, so we can also put that in the chat as a resource, and we can email out these resources as well after maybe tomorrow. We can send out all the resources. And then Lauren asked, is it harder for kids to learn how to use the latch setting compared to the timer setting? And so that's an excellent question. In the beginning, sometimes it's nice to have direct, where you don't have any timer or latch, and the child just touches the switch, and when their hand releases, the toy turns off, just so they can get that immediate feedback, like, oh, okay, this is what happens. And then you could experiment with timer or latch. I wouldn't say one is harder than the other. Sometimes people might move to latch next, where you turn it on, but then sometimes it just sits there on forever. So you could say, hey, let's turn it off and try something else. And so you could then have it on latch, so they can see, okay, it turned off. But sometimes the timer gets kids more interested. So I wouldn't say it's really harder. It's just different.
And I think some things are a little more intuitive for on and off, like a light going on and then you turn it off is a little more intuitive than maybe making a toy walk and then stop walking. So yeah, it's just a different, and it kind of depends on maybe what the play is. Yeah.
And then Great. Bethany from Go Baby Go said that if you would like to adapt toys yourself, Go Baby Go on their website has a list of all the toys that they have directions for and video tutorials on how to adapt. So you can email Go Baby Go and they can send you those guides and video tutorials.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So we're going to just look at a few ideas. We've just made a couple of videos. It was too hard to try to like demonstrate all in this little screen. So we just pre-did some of the demonstrations. There's no kids though, it's just me. So we'll have to imagine that there's a kid involved there, but we looked at some common play themes. So there's some dress up activity, building a tower activity, and then there's a more pretend game about delivery and a birthday party. So we'll just launch in. And again, if you've, I'll take a little pause after each one in case anyone has any questions. So I'll explain what's in here in the video a little bit, but this is Piggy, and this is, it's a dress up, but I did it this way because I wanted you to see that dressing up doesn't always have to be like costumes. I just took balloons and pipe cleaners. And the quote, dressing up is wearing a balloon on the head. So we have a spinner on the iPad. The iPad can be, so we picked this particular app because all it requires is all you have to do is tap the screen once and it'll do the spinner. If you have a child who can't do that, that's really challenging, then you can also add a switch to the iPad. We just didn't want to have too much equipment in the video just for simplicity and clarity. So let's take a look.
For this dress up game, what we have is a walking pig with a switch adapted, an iPad spinner set up for choosing colors, and some colorful balloons for Piggy to wear. So let's get started. You would set this up, I have it set up so you can see all the components, but you would set it up obviously for easy reach for your child. So let's give it a spin. What color is Piggy gonna wear? And it's blue. Okay, let's get the blue balloon for Piggy. Get it around. Here we go, Piggy. Are you ready? And go. Oh, there he goes. Piggy is wearing a blue balloon. Woohoo! Go, Piggy, go. Uh-oh. Hey, Piggy. You want another balloon? Let's pick another color.
So you obviously can see how that works. You can also expand that play a little bit too. People around the room could put balloons on their heads and really make it sort of just like a clowning around fun game with just balloons and pipe cleaners. So here's another dress up game done a little bit differently. Now we actually have something that's a little more dressing up. And now I'm using a step-by-step, which is a little communication device actually where you can record messages, and you can do this in a sequence of messages. So you'll see how this is set up.
So for this dress up game, we have Piggy again with a switch, but now we also have a switch latch timer, which allows me to give one tap for Piggy to walk instead of having to hold the switch down. So let me show you. It's just timed for a couple of seconds. I have my dress up items, and I have a step-by-step, which is a simple button where you can record a series of words or messages. And I'll demonstrate that. We have our dress up items. Hat. Necklace. Purse, and our cape. So we'll use this to make choices on what Piggy's gonna wear. So here we go. What should Piggy wear? I wonder. Hat. Necklace. Purse. Cape. Hat. Nah. Purse. That's what I want. I want the purse. Okay, Piggy, here we go. Ooh, look at that pretty purse Piggy's wearing. Very nice. So stylish. Piggy, what should you wear next? Cape. Oh, cape. That's the one. Definitely. Let's get a cape on Piggy. Here we go. There he goes. Woohoo, Super Pig.
So in this example of the sequenced, the way you could use that with a child too is you could just have them, hit and listen, and then when they stop, that could be kind of the choice. You could say, "Oh, you stopped on the purse. Let's get the purse on." And the other thing I wanted to say about the step-by-step is if you have a child who uses head access for a switch, because this is voice output, if this is gonna be loud right by my head, hey mom, it's like right close to my ear, that can be startling for a lot of children. So there is a switch port in the step-by-step goes in. And so then you could have the step-by-step a little further away and then have the head switch activate that. So just to highlight, usually with head switches, we don't like to put the step-by-step right there. Okay. So that's dress up. Now we're gonna look at some building games. We're building a tower and we have Dino and we're going back to the spinner. So we'll just play this video.
So for this building activity, we have a switch adapted dinosaur with a switch. We don't have a switch latch timer for this. We don't need it because the dinosaur has built-in timing after one tap. We have our blocks, of course, for building our tower, and we have the iPad spinner again, this time with numbers, so we can find out how tall our tower is going to be. So let's give it a try. Let's build a tower, Dino. How many blocks should we use? 2 blocks. Okay, here we go. 1, 2. Okay, Dino, you ready? Go get that tower. There he goes. Ah! Woohoo! Yes, come on, Dino. Let's do another tower. How many blocks? 3. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, Dino, let's go crash it. There he goes. Oh, there he goes. All right, Dino. Let's do another one.
And so for that, you can take turns. Somebody gets, if there's another child involved or a brother or sister, one person could spin while the other operates the Dino. Lots of ways to make that more interactive too. And so here is another version of the tower building now with the step-by-step.
So for this building activity, we have Dino again with the switch, and we have our blocks. We have the step-by-step again, but instead of setting it up for choices, it's been programmed with a script for building a tower and crashing it. So let's give it a try. Of course, I'm hitting these buttons. These would all be hit by the child. So here we go. What do you want to do? Build a tower. Build a tower, great idea. Here we go. Make it really high. Okay. I'm making it really high. Even higher. Even higher? Okie dokie. Oh my goodness. Oh, let's see. Oh, I better do it this way. Oh, what am I gonna do next? Let's crash it. Let's go, Dino. Here we go. Oh, Dino! Is it gonna crash? Oh, no! Dino didn't even crash it! Come on, Dino. Let's do it again. Oh, there he goes! He's crashed it.
So that was just an example of one script you can do. Sometimes it's nice to be a little bit general with some of the scripts, like higher and higher versus a specific number, but also wanted to highlight you can use anything. So we have these nice little light blocks, but you could use like plastic cups at home. Once when I was demonstrating it, the only thing in the room was Dixie cups. So we put Dixie cups up. So, you know, any sort of thing that you could stack or play with, you can just use anything around the house or be spontaneous, or again, kind of experiment with some new things that could get knocked down, not just your traditional blocks.
So Kim, someone asked for the spinning wheel app, what it's called, and if parents can put that on their iPad.
Yeah, and it's also in our handout, but it's called Tiny Decisions. And oh, here. It's yeah, it's so I'll just give you the caveat. It's free and it's, you know, it's worth free, shall we say. So what you can do is, I don't think you can have multiple wheels, but the reason I like this one is some of them you actually have to kind of swipe to get it to spin, and this one you only have to tap. So that's one of the reasons we like it, just because it's the tap. But yeah, Tiny Decisions, and it's free.
And also I like the sound feedback. So when it spins, you could hear it go tick, 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 tick.
Yeah. Did you hear that?
And then it gives the ding. Yep.
Yeah. It's not very big what's on it. So if for a lot of kids, you probably have to let them know what it is that it says if they can't see it. Great. Okay, so that was dress up and building. Now this is a video of something that's a little more of an extended sort of pretend play. And I'll give you a little heads up because we only caught part of it when we videoed it a couple of years ago. It's a delivery game with Piggy. So Piggy's our delivery piggy. And there's some choices of food. And so the child would pick what they want to have delivered. And of course, we've got, you know, pizza and some good food. You can also do other silly or gross things. You could add broccoli or worms. Okay, so, you know, really trying to make it fun and silly. But the child could then, this is one way to pick what to deliver. And then there's a script that you could do on a step-by-step, where it's kind of like a phone conversation, like, hi, I'd like to make a delivery. And then you order what it is that you want. On this example, we're actually using an app called Tap Speak Sequence. And it is very much, it's like an app version of the step-by-step. The unfortunate thing is it hasn't been updated in a couple of years, so it can be a bit glitchy, and I'm very sad because it was a really, really awesome app to have. And what I liked about it was you could have your whole you know, ordering sequence, and then you could just go in and change one line, which would be the thing that you're delivering. If you did it on the step-by-step, you'd have to do the whole sequence each time. That's the only difference. It's not the end of the world, but it's a bit of a difference. So I'll show you this.
What else should we deliver? What else do you want to order? A milkshake. Okay, let's change it.
So here I'm just changing the one message about what I'd like to order.
Here we go. Strawberry milkshake. I'd like to order a strawberry milkshake.
But the whole sequence is in there. You'll hear it.
Okay, here we go. Let's go. Ring. Hi there. I'd like to place an order for delivery. Oh, okay. What would you like? I'd like to order a strawberry milkshake. All right. Anything else? Yep, that's it. Okay, where would you like it delivered? The address is 123 South Main Street. Got it. We'll be there soon. Thanks. See you soon. Bye. All right, pizza time. Strawberry milkshake time. Here's your strawberry milkshake.
So you could, you could do all sorts of things. You could deliver to different people in the room. There's like all sorts of variations on any kind of a delivery vehicle. So that's just a way to think about just walking toys in general. So we can make them go, and that's great, but it gets a little more interesting when they go and do something, right? They knock down a tower, they deliver things to people, they go across and give someone a kiss. There's all different things that our walking animals can do to expand the play and make it a little more engaging and fun and novel and keep kids interested, even if, because sometimes we get a little bored of one toy, but if one toy can do lots of different things, it extends the life of the toy. So yeah, just thinking about being creative. Again, walking toys or dancing toys, think of all the different things that they could do, en route, or what they're doing, or dressing them up, or, doing all sorts of crazy things with them. The spinner, there is also an adapted spinner that is made by AbleNet. It's a bit pricey, but it's switch adapted, and it's kind of, it has a stand. Oops. Stands at the back, so it can be nice and upright. And these, they come with sort of some dice and numbers, but you can also just flip it around, and there's Velcro, so you can add anything. So it can be either you're spinning colors, numbers. It really depends on the game that you're playing. It could be, it could be Mr. Potato Head, and it could be like different parts of a potato head. There's lots of things that you could use for this spinner. Again, we do have this for loan. The one thing that the little caveat about this is it tends to like get a little bit finicky and sometimes breaks down much more quickly than it should, given that it's like $160 or something. So, but anyways, we do have that to borrow if anyone wants to try it. And then with the power link, so something that plugs in, you could do a blender. And so of course you can do all sorts of things. You could have a step-by-step that maybe had the recipe to a smoothie or a milkshake or something. And you could tell somebody the recipe and then activate the blender. You can use a fan to blow out candles. And we're gonna actually show that live in a second. I have not done this, but I think it's such a great idea because I've never had an electric leaf blower, but if you had an electric leaf blower, we saw an example of somebody playing bowling with that, where they could hit the switch and kind of blow a ball across the floor. An air compressor to blow up a balloon. You could have an electric carving knife, not held by the child, held by the adult, but activated by the child, right? To carve up, a pumpkin or something else. And so just trying to think of having lots of options or using the options we have in novel ways so kids don't get bored. And so speaking of the fan, a friend of ours learned from other parents actually about a child being able to blow out our own birthday candles just using a switch adapted fan. And that's exactly what this picture is the first time she ever blew out her own candles, and it was brilliant. And so that's such a great functional idea. I'm going to show you a play idea with it. Can anyone, before I launch into it, anyone got any ideas of how this idea could become a play idea?
So someone asked about bubbles.
Uh-huh. Oh, blowing bubbles?
I suppose, yeah, maybe for the birthday party.
Yeah, you might be able to use the fan. Have we tried that before with you could try to hold the wand up and see if it would blow the bubbles. Yeah.
Or even if you blow them and then the fan blows the bubbles all around.
Yeah, that would be cool too. That's a great idea too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Someone said chasing a balloon. Someone else said use the fan to blow balloons around the room.
Yeah, that would be great. How about blowing birthday candles out, but it's not your birthday? That's what I'm going to show you. So I have a little Play-Doh birthday cake here. So you could use Play-Doh, or you could use a real, I actually just have a muffin here, but you could have a cupcake, or so you could have real or fake food.
And Kim, someone did say, have a birthday party for your stuffed animals.
Yes, perfect. So we've got horsey, cow, and dog. Okay, and so you could just have these items out. The child could pick the item like horsey, or however they make their choices. If they do better with symbols, you know, you could have pictures of those animals. You could do it on the step-by-step, like a script too, or not like a script, but the choices. So however they would pick their animal, it would be their birthday. So let's say, I think it's Horsey's birthday today. So I would take my step-by-step, turn it on. And I'm going to just demonstrate for those of you who've maybe not used a step-by-step. I turn it on with this on-off button here. And when I hold this button down and it turns red, it means it's in record mode. And then when I push the button down, it's recording. And then when I lift it up, it pauses so that I can go to the next phrase. And when I push it down, it's recording. So, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear horsey. Happy birthday to you. And sometimes we'll do one little extra blank hit at the end, just in case there's an accidental hit. It lets you know you're at the end. And then I just hit this to take it off the red. And now we're not in record mode anymore. And so, let's say I'm using a head switch. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. And that's how I'm all ready to sing. So, or you can keep the birthday song really kind of neutral without the name if you want. And then you could see that if you had numbers, you could spin and pick a number for how old Horsey is, or you could pick what color cake you want, numbers, colors, however you want, whatever's interesting to the child. So Horsey is 3 today. So we're gonna sing happy birthday to Horsey. Are you ready? Here we go. Oops. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Horsey. Happy birthday to you. And then I have my switch over here. Sorry, it's a little awkward. I'm all by myself on a couch, but here we go. I just turned my fan on. Here it is. Yay! Happy birthday, Horsey! And so, and you could do that. You could pick different people. Like I said, it could be one person or animal with lots of different ages to pick, or color of cake, or type of candle. Lots of ways you could kind of have fun with that birthday party. Okay. Any questions? I'm just going to go really quickly because we're near the end here. There is a paint spinner that can be adapted. You can either buy it adapted, or Go Baby Go, I think, has the directions for the paint spinner. But it's fabulous because you can obviously make art, but then you can do other things with it, right? You can make a Mother's Day card, or a birthday card, or a I miss you card. All sorts of different, a collage of different cards together. Another idea about the bubbles is maybe putting a little bit of food coloring in, and then when they blow the bubbles, just holding paper up and having the bubbles pop on the paper would be kind of a fun way to make some art, different art ideas. You could use a spinner to pick different colors. So you could have the 3 primaries, blue, red, and yellow, and then you'd spin twice to pick the 2 colors, combine them just to see what color it makes. So kind of a nice experimentation, fun game with colors. With this little guy, Mikey, that we worked with, he had cortical vision impairment, and actually the light hitting and going through the colored water was actually attractive to him, and it was sort of a way to highlight colors. You could also, you know, shine a flashlight on things if you were trying to just sort of expose a child to different colors and what colors different colors make. And then we do have this handout that I think Bethany emailed to everyone, and it basically says everything that we talked about today, whether it's an app or a certain kind of switch interface. If you have any questions, we're gonna have a couple of minutes for questions at the just coming up at the end here, but feel free to contact Carrie or I if there's any follow-up questions or specific other questions that you have about any of this. And so Carrie's going to put the evaluation link in the chat box and our contact info. And I think there were some other things in there. Plus there'll be a follow-up email. Bethany said she's going to do a follow-up with the evaluation link. If you're a PT and you want continuing education, you have to finish the quiz portion of the eval. But nobody else has to do the quiz unless you want to, but PTs will have to do that. And then here is just our website info. I don't think, okay, did we have our other? Oh yeah, so here we go. So we'll just do some questions. I'm gonna stop sharing so we can see each other's faces.
Hi, Kim. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
I noticed that when you do the switches, you had them in the same place. Would it be something that you could move the switches to other places to get just movement, or is it best to keep it in the same place to do the same toy each time?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. And it kind of depends on what the purpose is. So the way we break it out is, let's say you're in a PT session and you just got like a really great toy and you really want to work on like crossing midline or something. You might kind of slowly migrate your switch to get a bit of that reach. But if we are working on switches for access that might be kind of prepping a child towards communication or some kind of scanning, that's where you want it to be consistent and easy. So you don't want it to be physical therapy because you really want it to be about the social interaction or the play or the activity. So if you're trying to take the motor piece out because you want it to be about the activity, then you want it to be in a really good, easy, consistent place. But if the whole point of it is actually the muscular work, then that's when you would maybe move the switches around. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, you're on mute, Carrie.
I will share that I've talked to some physical therapists who've had the same question. And like Kim said, if you have a single toy, like let's just say you're turning on one toy, you're not trying to get like 2 switches, 2 functions, or like Kim said, moving towards communication, and you just have one toy that the child loves. And the goal there is, we got to work on range of motion and he loves this toy, and he's over a ball, then it's fine. Like you kind of move it further away. Oh, Johnny, you can get it. Let's turn that music on. Then that would be fine. Does that make sense? But yeah, if you're like, this is about play and problem solving and we're working towards a communication setup, then you would want it in a very consistent, easy spot.
Any other questions? If not, thank you all for joining. And you will get an email with follow-up. This is going to be recorded too, so we might send you a link too in case there's anything you wanted to look on again, or if you have colleagues that missed it and wanted to check out any of it, it'll be recorded. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the sunshine. Bye.